All right, and we are live. Shalom, everybody, and welcome to the Yishai Fleischer Show, broadcasting indeed live from Judea to the world, and you are a part of it wherever you are. Shalom and welcome. And shalom and welcome to Rav Mike Feuer. Shalom and welcome. How are you, sir?
Oh, it's great. I'm great. It's great. Everything's great. It's great to see you.
It is
It's all
great,
good.
and I did want to tell you, as we were preparing for the show, I was like, I wanted to talk about something, and I didn't remember, and then it just flooded into my head that I wanted to tell you that I had the merit to be in the right place in the right time and to see with my thine own eyes. I got to see the flash floods in Ein Gedi area and all over the Dead Sea, from
It's an
Ein Bokek
amazing
to the
thing.
north, to see the flash floods as the giant rains came and hit Jerusalem and the rest of the country, but they did not hit the Dead Sea area. Suddenly, over these cliffs, where people know about Masada, and Qumran has one of these amazing just waterfalls that form rivulets of the Negev. They form there, and I got really it was a lifetime. It was a bucket list thing. It was a bucket list thing.
I've seen it. It's really an incredible thing to just see this raging river burst out of bare rock. Was it blocking the road?
It blocked the road, but they unblocked it. But basically, they've really built a lot of canals and pipes to channel that phenomenon. But like just to see it, wow,
Right.
to see it burst forth, and that's interesting because we went from all the way from Ein Bokek in the southern Dead Sea, and we were driving up as this was happening. We stopped at 5 or 6 of these spots, and they were really gorgeous. Finally, we got to Qumran, and we went there. And I was really looking forward to see Qumran. I'd actually never visited the site, so I went there, and I was like very excited. I was slightly underwhelmed, and then I called my mom, and I said to my mom, like, "Well, why is this a little underwhelming?" And she says, "Well, because nobody's exactly sure anymore of what exactly really happened there. The consent. There's no consensus exactly." On what happened in Qumran or who these people were. Were they Essenes? Were they the ones that wrote these scrolls?
The neat, clean story has collapsed.
Right.
True.
And so it was, and then it came to me in a non-scientific vision. It became obvious to me that the scientists had archaeologists had missed what the real story of Qumran was. When I got to Qumran, there were a lot of pools, a lot of ritual baths. Yeah. And it became all too obvious that this was basically the resort, the pool and water park resort of the ancient world in the northern Dead Sea. You just came down there. This whole
the Jerusalem Schwitz.
That's right. This whole Essenes thing is confused. They were not ascetics. They were purveyors of the great water park area, and it was anything but. Okay, it was just fun and good times for the Judeans and for the Jerusalemites. Makes perfect sense. Lots of pools, northern Dead Sea, rivulets come down there, just fabulous. And but indeed, one of the biggest of all the bursting waterfalls was there at Qumran, and they even have a view. The cave that they found the stuff in is right across from this overflow waterfall.
From the water. Yeah. It's quite a dramatic sight. Yeah, I've been down there a few times.
And our old friend, a good buddy, Lorelei Kood, a legendary figure, and who we miss very much here
in the Jerusalem radio scene.
That's right. She says, "Hi, Yishai and Rav Mike. A friend of mine took a picture of a rainbow over the Dead Sea. Kind of a once in a lifetime moment." Absolutely.
Yeah.
Although it does happen, Lorelei, it does happen. Rainbows do happen there every year. And in fact, many years ago, about 20 years ago, I was leading a birthright tour. And my good friend Alex Trayman and Sippy were on the bus. They were going out. And guess what happened? Alex popped the question there at the Masada, at the base of Masada, after we saw many rainbows on a rainy day in the winter birthright tour of that area. And that's when that rainbow came out. I always think of when I see a rainbow down at the Dead Sea, I think of Alex and Sippy's rainbow. They got engaged right there. Chabad rabbi gave brachas. I made the first shidduch, and it was good friends got engaged down there, and they're still happily married with a lot of kids. So Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem. That's a winner story.
You have a friend that says shalom from Malay Adumim, Shaul
Shaul.
Lindblom.
Yeah,
There you go.
he's right upstairs. If I start banging on the ceiling, I hear him.
Okay, Shaul. So not so from so far away. It's good. And my man Moshe Herman says, "Hey guys, looking good from Idaho, Gullis, from outside of the good land, but in the good city, in the good state of Idaho,
The good country. Yeah,
good country." And our very own producer Shalom Yishai and Rav Mike, looking and sounding great. So there you go. So it's all happening. Everybody's here. Okay, we have we're nearing the end of the
And it
beginning.
gets big right here at the end.
Right. Isn't that the famous line by Churchill? We're at the end of the beginning. Is that right?
Something like that.
No, he says they're like, is this the beginning of the end? He goes, no, but it's the end of the beginning, and the
It's
war
one of those
goes
Churchill
on.
lines. Everyone's like,
It's Churchillian. That's right. Maybe I'll call the show the end of the beginning.
That is good, sir.
Yeah, and now I think it's fair to say that this is the harder part of the book of Genesis. Brothers selling Joseph down to Egypt. And yes, it worked out and God meant it to be that way. But there's a harshness there. And now Joseph testing his brothers, putting them to the very limit, as telling them that he's going to now arrest Benjamin and Benjamin and not allow him to go back up. Judah steps forth in what seems like a very conciliatory type of speech. The rabbis read it as actually not so conciliatory. It's like partially conciliatory or partially, if you want to rumble, we're going to rumble because I can't let you have Benjamin. But in that is also a revelation that Judah has changed, that he's not going to sell his brother down, that also there's a revelation that Jacob had always understood that Joseph had been eaten or killed, and that wasn't told before to Joseph. So now he understood that he, maybe he had some thought that maybe his father sent him away. That cleared up. A lot of things cleared up. Joseph cries and he reveals himself to his brothers. The sages say that he's like, I'm Joseph. They're like, no, you're not.
Come on.
And then finally, he had to show them his circumcision to be like, no, I'm really physically your Jewish brother. Which I always thought was like a very, very Jewish moment there. Very,
it had to be awkward in the happening.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mel Brooksian moment right there.
Oh, he's Jewish. Oh, he's Jewish.
Okay. You're our brother Joseph. Okay. All right. If Mel Brooks knew that midrash, he for sure would have.
I'm sure Mel Brooks. Come on, the genius. He knew everything.
But so this is what I guess I want to throw out to you, which is like revelation, and also before Joseph's revelation, the what's the word I'm looking for, when you face your mistake, when you deal with your with the errors, with there's a word I'm looking for here where it's like
a specific word, I mean,
like when you're facing the thing that you did wrong, and you're making an accounting of it, whatever it is. Okay, in any case,
confession,
what's word?
Repentance, confession,
all right,
owning up to what you've done. Yeah. I could just keep tossing out ideas.
all those. So like, let's talk a little bit about tshuva and about like change, which is Lorelai says confronting oneself. All right, good. Confronting oneself. Good. Let's talk about that moment where you have to be like, yeah, you know what I mean? I did wrong, but I'm not going to do it again. In many ways, it's the story of tshuva and of assuming the role that you were supposed to assume in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that you're talking about the brothers in this sense, although really, to me, the great revolution happens for Yosef. Meaning, okay, the brothers have shown that they've changed. I mean, that's one of the ways we can understand Joseph's manipulation of them to basically put them, as the Rambam says, in the exact same situation that they found themselves with with Yosef. Meaning, here's another son of Rachel, perhaps not as blatantly favored by their father, but certainly it's clear to everyone that he's a little bit more important than he was certainly more important than Shimon, right? I mean, Yakov wasn't willing to trade him out, right? And they're in a situation in which every justifiable cause is on their side for saying, well, we're just gonna have to give him up. I mean, what are we supposed to do against the viceroy of Egypt who insists that he's a thief? And yet they show their willingness to be moser nefesh, to really give their literally their lives, or at least their freedom, for his sake. So in that sense, yes, they have changed. But I really think the profound act of confrontation of the self, to borrow Lorelai's phrase, happens with Yosef, because he no longer blames his brothers. His profound statement that God has sent me here isn't just some sort of theological throwaway of well, I have faith and everything's from God, etc. It's an incredible reframing of his entire life story. That he takes the exact same facts, and he doesn't necessarily absolve the brothers of the responsibility that they own for the decisions that they made, but he says, I choose to tell a story in which I was taken by God and not in which I was a victim. And that ability to reframe a story in which he could have been a victim, and a victim with a lot of power, which in many ways is one of the most dangerous positions a victim can be in. Because to gain power and to maintain an attitude of victimhood leads to nothing good in life. I mean, we as a people struggle with this. And he chooses to actually be powerful and say, no, I'm an agent of God. You are responsible for what you did, but don't kid yourselves. My life is about what God has done with me.
Right. I mean, he is the viceroy of Egypt, so it worked out good for him, kind of. He's in a good place in that sense.
Yeah, okay, fair. I mean, it's easier to reframe when you're happy with where you are, no question. Nonetheless, I think that many people, I'll say it again, there's nothing more dangerous than when a victim actually finds themselves in a position of power.
Right.
And that happens. And people make bad choices, and they become victimizers under the guise that they themselves have always been sort of put upon, and et cetera, et cetera,
I'm going to tell a bit of a contentious story, I think a tad. I was touring a very prominent Black church. One of the things that they told me was one of the reasons that they identify with the Jews, one of them was Martin Luther King, but the other one is that we both share a heritage of slavery. And they said to me, and this is through many conversations, but at the end they said to me in front of a lot of people, they said, isn't it true that you guys mention your slavery at least twice a day? I said, it is true. We do mention our slavery and where we came from. I said, but, and I said, we definitely share that. I said, but whenever we mention our slavery, we mention God's great redemption.
That's the key.
Right.
The mitzvahs were called the Exodus, not the slavery.
Right. Right. The Exodus, as in, i.e., the Exodus, that means God's hand, God's redemption. Yes. And I'm like, and I said to them, and this was the leadership of like a 6 million people church. And I said to them, when we talk about our slavery, we talk about God's great hand, his redemption, the gift that he's given us of life and opportunity, and to keep going and to follow his ways. We talk about the slavery, but like that we came out of the slavery and God has given us, a chance to serve him in joy. And Rev Mike, there was silence for a very awkward minute. There was a very awkward minute there because they had not, I think I would say they didn't say it, but I think that they would admit that they're conscious, that the folks in their world have not reached that consciousness of like being like, yeah, we were slaves, but like, thank God we're alive and here we are and we're so successful and everything is going amazing for us in so many ways, and we're out of that and God has taken us out of that.
You're putting your finger on the essence of the power of the Jewish story. From the time of the Exodus, first literally directly from God, and then ultimately through our spiritual leadership, we've been trained to transform our suffering into a source of positive identity. Right? The primary tool for that, as you're pointing out, is this deep faith we have that everything comes from God. That's why Yosef says, listen, you guys are responsible. I put you all through this so that you can own what you did. But me, I'm with God. And I know that everything that happened to me, even if you were the agents, God is the driver. And God means only good for me. So I'm going to take my suffering, I'm going to transform it into a source of positive identity. Like you said, we're going to remember twice a day at least that we're slaves. But the emphasis is not on slavery. The emphasis is on the fact that in our slavery, God remembered us and redeemed us from Egypt.
But wouldn't you say that the brothers would be like, yeah, that's nice of you, but why have you been such a jerk to us?
Well, because like I said, it doesn't absolve them of the need to do tshuva.
Right.
Right. In the same way, we haven't gotten there yet, but we're getting to a generation that will have to do this work. We're going to have to do this work on the Holocaust. And when we're able to transform the Holocaust somehow into a source of positive identity, that in no way absolves the Nazis. No way. That's our work.
Right.
That's our work, because we don't want to choke on the horror of our historical memory. They should choke on it. Because they, I've never, one of the most powerful statements I've ever heard about the Holocaust came from Rav Yehuda Amital, Zecher Tzaddik V'Bracha, who was, one of the founding Rosh Yeshivot of Har Etzion there in Alon Shvut. And he said that after he was a survivor, he said that after Auschwitz, that he was able to say Shelo Asani Goy with the fullest heart that he ever had. Meaning he was able to thank God for not being made a non-Jew. Why? Because when he looked around at Auschwitz, he said, this is what it comes to, and it's just not what I have in the world. It's not who I am, right? That grace, even in his suffering, to recognize that whatever horror the Jews have been through, it actually in the long run doesn't hold a candle, because our horror has a chance of being transformed into a source of positive identity. But being the perpetrators in that situation, and that, in many ways, lahavdil, but in many ways, that's the difference between Yosef and his brothers. His brothers are going to have to deal. And by the way, notice in the end, Yosef is shalem. He's fine. And yes, you're right. He's viceroy in Egypt, and it's all good. But the brothers are now living off the fat of the land, literally, right? They're there. They bring Jacob down. They bring down their families, etc. But at the end, next week, what's going to happen when Jacob dies? They all flip out, because they have still stuck in that story. And they think, oh, we're going to run to Joseph and say, your dad said before he died, you have to be nice to us. Joseph is like, what? You're still in that story? Like, I moved on. I'm not trapped.
Right. But here's where you and I have disagreed in previous years. That's why I remember, is that to me, when I read Joseph, there's just a few phrases there where it's obvious to me that one thing that he has not overcome or changed is in his unique relationship with his father that makes the other people be jealous. And therefore he causes jealousy, and he doesn't kind of hide that. And then he speaks in a language that is like this, like, I'm a prophet. No, you're not. And I can tell you stuff. And how's my dad? And sure, you didn't sell me down here. You didn't sell me down here, but God, brought me down here. But it's like, but I know you sold me down here, but God, it's like, he's got all these little phrases that if I'm standing and I'm his brother, I'm like, okay, we were wrong to sell him, but it's still that Joseph,
he's still a jerk.
Yeah, he's still like that guy that is very insensitive to human feelings. It's almost like he's a like a savant a little bit. Like yeah, you're a genius. Yeah, you're unique, but there's something about you that misses social cues, and you just don't understand that you're just edging. Like why even tell your brothers these dreams? You got these dreams. It's like, hey, I had a dream that you guys were all bow down to me. Okay, but and that's my point, is that he still says that. He's like, I'm viceroy of Egypt. The famine will be for another 5 years. How's my dad doing? It's just he's got these tendencies that, like, if I'm on the other side of that, I'm like, fine, yeah, but it is you after all. It's like it is definitely you.
I mean, fair enough, but I think that also part of what you said is very true, which is that he's categorically different than his brothers.
Right.
He's categorically different than his brothers, and to pretend that he's not isn't being honest either.
Right. That's right.
Right. Let's remember that he gets elevated almost to the status of one of the avot, one of the forefathers. Right. And his sons join the tribes. He himself is this sort of in between, which is, of course, kabbalistically the role that Joseph plays. He's the connector, and has a unique power. Hence the fact that he's a messianic model in a way in which people often miss. It's a very specific and very important phase of the messianic model that Yosef is able, through his elevation, to build a bridge between the nations and Israel. And if he didn't elevate himself, he would sink into the nations.
For sure.
It's only, the model of Judah, who's safe in his land, and is separate can be more like the nations, oddly enough, right? Because there's a boundary, there's a border. Yosef is out there. He's out there in the midst, and if he doesn't hold himself somewhat above, he can't do his mission.
And he
Is
is
that
the
always happy and
quintessential.
smooth? No, it's not always happy and smooth. You're right, but it may be necessary.
Right. Well, let's take a look at some of the comments. We have our good friend Erica says, Shalom, rabbis. Hope you had a great Hanukkah. Nice to be live with you for a short time. I need to go back to work soon. It's always exciting, live and exciting Parsha. Definitely. God bless you, Erica. And thank you so much for being part of the International Torah Congregation. We love you out there. Thank you so much. It's good to hear from you. And I had a great Hanukkah. I have to admit, I barely worked. I was on vacation. I went to the South. My kids swam with dolphins. Then we were at the Dead Sea. It was just, we lit the candles every night in all kinds of funny places and with all kinds of people. It was just very special. So it was a great time to have Hanukkah. Did you have a good Hanukkah, Rav Mike?
I did. It was my favorite kind of Hanukkah, which was at home. We did some adventures. Took a great hike up the Sartaba. Just fantastic. One of my favorite hikes. Easy, fun, but more than anything else, I had the great pleasure and leisure of lighting candles in a slow and substantive fashion with my family. There's nothing I love more than belting out all the verses of Mouts or together with the whole family with the windows open so that the whole neighborhood can hear us.
Oh yeah, we do all the verses.
You got to do it. You got to
do the whole verses. It's a whole history lesson. Got to do it. Okay, our producer, when we're live, Lou says the brothers told Yosef that Yakov had given them a message to give to Yosef. The brothers told you it was a request to forgive the brothers for all their sins. It seems obvious that the brothers didn't believe that Yosef's previous forgiveness was sincere.
For sure. That's what I mean. They're stuck in that story. They haven't reframed their own actions because it's much harder to reframe your actions when you're the agent of violence against your brother than when you're its object.
Lorelai says maybe it's a good idea to acknowledge that our own slavery to acknowledge that in our own slavery redemption story, we had a Moses and a promised land, and Black Americans who were enslaved had Reconstruction followed by Jim Crow. It's not totally a parallel story. You're absolutely right. Yeah, for sure not. And I agree with you. But at the same time, it's not a parallel story, and there are inequalities, etc. And I'm not here to comment on America in general. That's not it. But there was a moment to me where it's like, it was more like, if you're going to parallel us, the Jews, well, here's how we do it.
Yeah.
That I'm not giving them Musar. It's not my business to give them Musar. But if they're going to ask me, don't you parallel us? I'll say, well, this is we do talk about slavery, but we talk about
how
redemption.
It really works.
And it was I didn't make the conclusion for them. It was theirs to make a conclusion. But there was a moment of silence where I could see them thinking, like, are we, thanking God for all the gifts that we've had since then?
Listen, I will make the conclusion, both as a student of history in the work I've done for the Jewish story and as a counselor in the work I do daily with people. There's a process that I call historical mastication. It's an awkward term, but a good one. Right? What is it? It's how you chew, swallow, and digest what history shoves down your throat, either personally or as a people. You don't have a choice. You can either choke or you can swallow. But the reality is that whatever the sort of very, and Lorelai is entirely correct, the very different historical sort of arcs to those stories, we don't have a choice. When we have suffering and institutional pain in our past, we either use it as a source for positive identity or it drags us down into that pit of victimhood and darkness.
Very good. Very good. And then your neighbor Shaul says, was Joseph autistic?
I mean, we have this tendency to throw that word at everyone today. I don't really have a scientific grasp of what it means in this whole neurotypical versus autistic thing, but he certainly wasn't like everybody else. That we can say for sure.
Right. That's right. And I think that he was very sensitive to certain things and insensitive to other things. That's what very sensitive people have. A lot of times they have a gift to he could hear a dream and understand it. I've been working very hard to think about what alternative meanings to the dreams. My latest thought was that I was asking myself, why are Pharaoh's dreams repeated? Why? Why does the Torah allow us to hear Pharaoh's dream 2 times?
Mm-hmm.
I was working on that very hard. Really, I was really trying to like, but I thought to myself, really, really the dreams are a kind of Holocaust. These cows getting eaten, by basically like evil eats good. That's basically the image, right? It's like
Sure.
it's like healthy, happy, Swiss cow. Food, I'm happy. I'm just everything's fine. It comes in this like emaciated thing, this like Holocaust thing, like eats it and eats away the image of like goodness and replaces it with this image of like darkness and sickliness. Um, I thought to myself, maybe this represented the the two temples destroyed, and that's why it was repeated twice because this happened basically twice. With the Holocaust being the end of the second temple destruction era.
And we could go even slightly further with that and just play off of how Yosef explains it. Remember what he tells Paro is why. What does Yosef say? Why does God show him essentially the same dream twice, even though first time it's with
No,
cows,
see,
second
that's
time
not
it's
what
with
I'm talking. Wait, just
No.
just look. Aaron Applebaum is saying
I-
what you're saying. He says Pharaoh's dream was repeated in order for Hashem to say, I don't mean the two.
I understand.
I mean
what
the
you're
four.
saying. Why does the Torah tell us both twice? I understand.
Right.
So what I'm saying is we should riff off of what Aaron's pointing out there, because that's not what I meant. What is this? That's Yosef's explanation to Paro of why Paro sees the dream twice.
That's fine. Right.
Your question is, why do we get it essentially 4 times? Why is there a repetition
Exactly.
again?
Right.
My answer is that to speak, so to speak, in the voice of Yosef, so that we should know that this is an imminent reality for every reader.
Right.
That there is a pattern in life where our sense of lack so easily consumes our sense of plenty, right? One of the morals there
I like that. Sense of lack consumes our sense of plenty.
Like that, right?
Love
because
it.
what Yosef points out to Paro is that why don't the lean cows get fat after eating these, the Swiss happy cows? Because once the lack comes, you don't even remember the plenty. And the great Eitzah, the great advice that Yosef gives to Paro is not how to hold off the lack. That can't be done because that happens. Life, that happens. It's how do you hold the plenty in a time of lack? And for us, I think that's the important message, which is this is nachon layom. This is always imminent. There's times of plenty and there's times of lean, whether it's emotionally, whether it's financially, whether it's relationship-wise. And the great danger is forgetting that there is plenty when you're experiencing the lean. And that, I think, is the warning there.
Like that very much. I like that very much. That's good. That's a great thought. Now, let's just go to one more thought, which is a scene that I find to be very dramatic, very romantic. And that is the scene of Jacob going down. He's going down to Egypt. And he's going to see his son, Joseph. And Joseph is the viceroy. And there's these great big Egyptian chariots coming to get him.
Wagons.
And they're about to pick him up. And this, just seeing these wagons, was just like, wow. And it jogs the memory. It touches him, and he sees it. But still, though, there's a problem, and he's been there before, and that is the problem of leaving the land of Israel. And he's been there before, and he was once afraid of leaving that land many, many years ago when he was running away from his brother Esav. And now he's going to go to Haran, and God showed him this vision of the dream of the ladder. Now, as he's leaving the land and everything's right, and he's in the chariot, he's like, whoa, stop. And you stop basically on the border between the land of Israel and the beginnings of Egypt, and that's Beersheba, and a place where his father, Yitzchak, and his grandfather, Avram, all had prophecies, a place of prophecy. And by the way, that's why I am very forceful on the idea that Beersheba is a biblical city, a prophetic city, and not
there's
just
no question. Just because people don't think of it that way, there's no question that it is.
Right. But it's not like thought of as a biblical city.
Unfortunate.
Right. It's a mistake.
We're working on it. We're
working on that. Exactly right. And so the verse says, we're in chapter Mem Vav 46, book of Bereshit, Genesis. Vaisai Israel. It's now the name Israel.
Well, you notice his name jumps back and forth even in the midst of each verse.
Right. Vaisai Israel, but like Israel started traveling down to Egypt. The Kol Asher Lo, and all that is his. Vayavo Be'era Shava, and he came to the town of Beersheba. Vayisbach Zvachim leElohei Aviv Yitzchak. He offers up offerings to the God of his father Isaac. So he's calling on the God of his father Isaac, who never left the land of Israel. Vayomer Elohim leIsrael, and God, but this is the God of nature, the God of law, says to Israel, B'marot halayla, in the visions of the night. Vayomer Yakov, Yakov, and he says, Yakov, Yakov, Vayomer Hineni. He says, here I am. After all this, go ahead.
Well, you just notice that it says Vayomer Elohim leYisrael. Where God said to Israel, but what does he say to him? Yaakov, Yaakov.
Right.
It's such a powerful expression about how Yaakov is the only character in the entire Bible who God changes his name and it doesn't stick. Because why? Because Yaakov is every man and Israel is the ideal.
Right.
And he's both. And remains both to the day he dies.
It's, to me, just to make it easy for people, it's Clark Kent and Superman. It's like Clark Kent. He's like Superman. You go down to Egypt now. Hey, Clark, I got to tell you something. It's like,
it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, there's this. If you think about it, I always think about it. Not that I care. So I know you're more in that comic book world, but you're more like that world than me. But like, I still grew up watching Superman. I was like, why doesn't he just be Superman all the time? Why does he need to be Clark Kent at all, Bichlal? Because I guess that's the real. That
was such a Jewish. Why does he have to be Clark Kent, Bichlal?
Yeah, who needs it, right? But think about it. Who needs it? Be Superman the whole day. What do you get tired? What's your problem? What do you need to be a second class reporter? What's the big deal? You need to meet Lois over coffee. Planet. Okay, but that's my point. My point is like, go ahead, be Superman.
He'd never know whether Lois really liked him for himself. That's what it's all about.
Okay, all right. But my point is, you could be Superman all day long, and no, but maybe that's the thing. The truth is that about Israel is that he really does have a Yakov inside.
Of course,
and every Jewish Chuck Norris has little Woody Allen inside.
Don't put Yakov in the Woody Allen category. Come on,
it's a shtickle like that. I think it is like that a little bit.
We could argue that later.
Okay, but
I can think of a better model for Israel than Chuck Norris, but.
Okay, I was using popular modos.
I know your Woody Norris whole thing.
So he says. So okay. So he's speaking, like you said, he's speaking to Israel, but then he says to him personally. Maybe Yaakov is like you said. Maybe Israel is the more general name, the name of the nation.
He's the perfect form. Yaakov is the reality.
Okay, that's one. Okay. Vayomer Hineni says, "Here I am." And this is the classic, we're ready. That's like, I'm ready for what you tell me. I'm ready to be commanded. Vayomer, and this God says, Anochi Ha'el. And we've heard before this term, Anochi Ha'el Beit El. I am the God of Beit El. But in this case, it's Vayomer Anochi Ha'el Elohei Avicha. I am the God of your father. Al tira mirda Mitzrayim. Don't be afraid of going down to Egypt. Ki legoy gadol asimcha sham. Asimcha sham, right? I will make you there into a great nation there. Anochi ered imach Mitzrayim, ve'anochi alecha gam alo. I will go down with you, says God, to Egypt, and I will surely bring you up. And then the ultimate kind of the denouement, the kind of last thing, but Yosef yasit yado al einecha. Joseph will put his hands on your eyes, as in he will cover your eyes, when you pass away. Yep. So your son Joseph will be with you at that, at that moment.
Crucial moment.
Wow. I love that. I got to tell you, my mom was like, wow. I'm always blown away by these sets of verses. And then, as you would expect it, Yaakov gets up and goes.
Yes.
And he's able to go with a clear conscience because God spoke to him. God appeared to him, revealed himself to him.
And I think that what I always find most moving here is that God put his finger on the essential human experience he's having, which he's afraid. So
Mhm.
it's not that Yakov doesn't have faith. It's not that Yakov has not just learned and believes that his son is now viceroy in Egypt and everything's going to be better and they'll be better. He's just afraid. Why? Because there's an uncertainty that is bound up with exile. And this statement, Al Tira, repeats itself through the prophets, Al Tira Avdi Yakov, right? Don't be afraid, my servant Yakov, right? It's never said Al Tira Avdi Israel. Israel isn't afraid because Israel lives in that God consciousness
Right.
where, okay, I go where God tells me to go, and of course I'll make it back. There's a promise. Yaakov is the one that has to live that on a daily basis. And to pretend not to be afraid is not courage.
Right.
Real courage is to be afraid and to go down to Egypt anyway. And that's why I always find this passage so moving.
It is. It really is. It really is. Just to hear, and just the gift of getting a godly assurance. It is a gift. It is a gift when you're on a path, and it's important to remember that the voice of God had been missing from Jacob's life through all the years of his mourning for Joseph.
So I'll tell you something. Can I tell you something personal?
Sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
Sure,
when you
sure.
said that divine assurance, something I've always told my kids is that we have a divine assurance. It's an amazing thing as a people. And here you and I are today actually living it more fully than our people have been able to live it for almost 2,000 years. And yet, that divine assurance is not for you and I. Divine assurance is from Israel. So
Right.
what's my personal comment? Is I dropped my eldest child, my daughter, off at Latrun today to be inducted into the army.
Wow.
It's a very big shift in her life, a very big shift in my life. And on one hand, I have absolute faith that God is going to look out for her. On the other hand, I understand that Yakov and Yisrael, yeah, God looks out for Klal Yisrael. But that doesn't mean every human being doesn't have to live the life that is there in front of them.
Sending your kids to the army is a mini binding of Isaac at the Akedah. It's like that. I also would like to say to American Jews, be careful when you think about Israel. Unless you had that atmosphere, that feeling in your life that you're putting your children on the line for the Jewish story, don't judge us so quickly, because that's a very that's a big sacrifice and self-sacrifice that we do around here, and that it's not easy to understand why we do certain things if you don't understand the self-sacrifice that's involved in our life.
Well, I mean, it's the essence of the difference of living in a place where we've taken agency for our own safety, as opposed to living in a place where another society has essentially promised us that they'll keep us safe.
Right.
I mean, on some level, that's the big difference.
Right. And therefore, the question of morality. In any case, I want to pray for your success and safety of your daughter. She should have a good Chariot, as we say, a good service,
Yeah.
and not only, by the way, not only physically via the enemies of Israel, but also for a good, meaningful time in connecting to the Jewish state, connecting to the army, meeting good people,
Yeah.
meaning good society around her that will help her grow, help her love the country, help her feel more Jewish, and not be as I always say, tzionut, lo tziniut.
Yeah. Right, exactly. No alienation.
Right.
No, I have very high hopes for her. She's
and Mark Richardson adds his blessings to Rav Mike's daughter for her service.
Amen. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Rav Mike Feuer, I want to thank you so much for joining me here on the Yishai Fleischer Show, and I want to wish you a happy post Hanukkah and a happy winter. We had some serious wintering here.
Winter. Oh,
it was beautiful. It was beautiful.
This week.
Right, we want more, so we ask God for more, and a great Shabbat Vayigash and we didn't even talk about Judah v. Joseph.
I tried to slip it in there. You avoided the messianic talk, which is probably okay.
Yeah. Well, there's two energies there. The Joseph, the Joseph, kind of the infrastructural Mashiach, the beginning of the redemption, and then the final spiritual redemption through the Davidic kingdom.
Let me soon, let me now.
Amen. Well, we'll have to talk about that in the coming weeks, Mr. Hashem. And in I guess this great period, this period of the Third Commonwealth, this rebirth and re-embodiment, this Messianic period, this ingathering of the Jewish people in the land of Israel, which is the greatest revelation of God in thousands of years, and for us, the greatest project of the Jewish people in 2,000 years. Incredibly exciting, and it's an honor and pleasure to be with you. And I want people to join you at ravmike.com and jewishstory.co, and they can avail themselves of your history podcasts and also of a spiritual guidance, helping people with their marriages, with their life, with their issues, and you deal with that every day, and you help a lot of people get strong again. Not just the old school psychology where they put you on a couch and they open you up and never close you back up, but rather empowerment, real empowerment to get back out there and to be the best selves that we can be and the best servants of Hashem that we can be.
B'ezrat Hashem.
All right, folks, more great stuff is on the way. Thank you so much to all our friends, to Steve Eisenberg, to Mark, to Lorelei, to Erica, to Shaul, to Aaron, and to Lou, and who else out there? And to Moshe Herman and all the folks out there around the world that are with us. God bless you. Stay tuned, stay strong, stay connected. More great stuff is on the way. And shalom. Rav Mike, Shabbat shalom, and thank you.
Shabbat shalom, Yishai.